Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends podcast. The podcast designed to help you feel, see, and think differently about the podiatry profession. With me today is Jo Shapter, and she is from East Kent Foot Care in Ashford, Kent, in the UK. Jo was recommended to me by another guest who's been on the podcast, Natalie Kitchener, who was on a few episodes back, episode 341. And Natalie said, you have to get Jo on the podcast. She was such an inspiration and influence to her when she was at university, and she said everybody is going to absolutely love her story. So, Jo, welcome to the show, even though you think you don't have a story to share.
Hi, thank you. And yes, I have massive imposter syndrome right now, and I'm scared that I've been bigged up and it's going to be a massive letdown.
Oh, it's going to be huge. Usually, and I said this to you before I press record, that usually whoever tells me they have the least interesting story, when you dig down a little bit, all of a sudden you go, my God, this is an absolutely fantastic story. And then you understand why people are inspired or influenced by some of the things that you say. So we'll find out. I could be wrong. We could be terribly wrong. We could just go, Jo, you were right. You're not interesting at all.
Yeah. Well, apologies in advance.
I think it's going to be fine. Now, I asked you for a bit of a bio, and I could even tell by a little bit what you told me in the bio, I already know that you have a very interesting story. But It will sound better if it comes to you than if I say it. So, take me through the story. What got you into podiatry in the first place? Because you came into podiatry a little bit differently.
Yeah, I don't know. It was weird. So I left school. I didn't even know what podiatry was. And I wanted to do something to do with sport because I've always been very sporty. My entire family are teachers, and so the general feeling was that I would go and do something that just to placate it all, and then I'd go and do something extra and become a teacher like everybody else in my entire family. But I didn't want to do that. Sports science, because I thought I wanted to do something. I didn't know what, because all that time ago, like when I was very young.
What sports were you playing, by the way?
I was playing badminton and skiing and just generally having a punt around at anything that was going, really.
Okay.
But I just loved sport, and my family was very sporty. My dad was like a football referee and into everything. So it's in our family, as it is with my kids now. So that was that. So I went and did my sports science and still wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And in amongst all of that, my mum had an accident at school and basically had to become medically retired. And she got very... She probably won't mind me saying this, but I would say she was pretty depressed and she was really young. She was like my age now and couldn't do anything. She lived on our sofa for quite a long time, and my nan came and lived with us and looked after her for quite a bit.
Well, you would too. You would feel that way if your career is taken away from you.
For sure.
Not by choice.
She was flying. She was a deputy head. She was progressing with her career, and all this big catastrophe happened. So she stopped, and we carried on around her, kind of thing. And then she said, shall we go and learn something together? And I was like, okay. So I was thinking we might learn French or to play the guitar or something.
Something, that's the usual things, yeah.
Yeah, and so we went and randomly learned how to do manicures and pedicures and beauty stuff, and I couldn't be less beauty. So I went, and I was just not sure what I like, but I think that I can apply this whole foot thing, this lower leg thing, to my sports science, because I really enjoyed the biomechanics and all this kind of improving performance stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, okay, let's just see how that goes. And on we toddled, and I was like, I don't really know what to do. So my dad was like, you probably could do with a proper job, especially if you want to live at our house. So
with your exercise and science degree, that you didn't actually apply that anywhere to get work?
No, I was I became a holiday rep, so I pretty much got drunk for 2 years abroad, so that was fun.
There's worse things to do.
So I came home from that and then got a job in France working for Customs and Excise, as it was at the time, looking for drugs, which was exciting when you found them, but really boring when you weren't.
Okay.
And so then did this sort of manicure thing with my mum, and then decided, because I was doing shifts, actually I quite like the foot thing, but not in a weird way, and became an FHP. So I went and did that when I was heavily pregnant with my twins and qualified as an FHP. And then it's sort of just, I always want to be the best that I can be in anything that I do. And I realised that doing that. It was basic, and I wanted more, and I wanted to be the best. So carried on through this kind of moving through this diploma thing, and then they offered this thing to become a podiatry assistant, but it wasn't moving as fast as they wanted it to be. And they dangled these carrots like, oh, it could be with Brighton, and it could be here, and it could be there. And it was like a carrot. And I was like, actually, I'll go and do it myself. So I approached Brighton and they let me in. And here I am, trying to be the best that I can be, really. And I used to drive down every day and cry a lot in the car because it's a really rubbish journey from my house. So I daily travel on the most windy, naff roads in the dark, crying. Get your violin out for me, it's very sad. And I had 3 small kids at primary school, and it annoys me when people say, oh, you know, I've got this and I've got that, and there's all these barriers why I can't. And actually, if you really want to do something, you really can. I'm fortunate that my husband just lets me do what I like, and he goes, yeah. But then he does bring it back in when I have the mad ideas. And I'm very lucky that I've got the support of my family. And my mum and dad are still about, so they helped a little bit with school runs and stuff when the kids were really little. And I spent 2 years going back and forth.
And I think that's the part that Natalie was talking about when she went through university as well. She had children. Yeah. And I think she was inspired that you went through the same thing, the same study with children as well, and you got through it. So she saw what you were doing and went, well, if you can do it, it means that I can do it. And you kept saying to her, yes, you can do it. You just got to put in the hard work. I remember actually
standing in the Leeds hospital having a conversation with her in the corridor. Actually, now you mention it. And she was a bit like, why am I doing this? And I was like, come on, you can do this. Like, I can do it, you can do it. And I was still trying to run my FHP business, which at that time had actually taken off, which I suppose inspired me to carry on and become better. So when I went to uni, I had associates, FHP associates, which are now training to be a podiatrist. So I want everyone to uplift. So
that's great.
I think I'd like to champion other people. I like everyone to do the best that they can. And if I can see an opportunity to raise other people up, I will always jump on it.
Yeah, I think that's really good what you said, though, that there's a lot of people that go through university, younger people, and they will they'll look for reasons and excuses why, oh, it's too hard, it's too tough, I've got too much to do, there's a lot of work around me. And I look at mature age students who have got mortgages, partners, children, all these other responsibilities, and then on top of that, they're actually studying. And look back to when I was at uni, my biggest responsibility is, do I go to that bar or do I go to that bar? And am I going to drink?
That was like the first time. When I went to the first time, I was like, can I afford a pizza and a pint? So I guess I had a purpose.
Yeah.
Really, the second time around, and I knew where I wanted to go, and I was more focused.
Well, I look back at the mature age students that went through when I went through, and I respect them more now as I've gotten older and I have responsibilities than I did when I was younger. I used to look at them and go, God, you guys are in your 30s, you're almost dead. Why are you here?
Yeah.
It just seems crazy. But I look back now and I go, I take my hat off to them that they decide to pivot or do a career change. Well, being in your 30s is not that late in life.
No, but when you're 18, it feels like it is now.
Yeah.
Like your 18-year-old self is like, whoa, you're old.
I know.
Even if you're a 25-year-old.
Yeah, well, I used to think that. So when you graduated from podiatry, did you go straight back to your FHP clinic and work as the podiatrist there? What was the progression from there?
Yeah, so before I went to Brighton, I only had a domiciliary FHP kind of set up. So I convinced my friend who was a teacher to retrain as an FHP.
Yeah.
So I sucked her into my little web of excitement. And she's still with me now. She's awesome. She's like my best friend and also my colleague. But that was still running. That was still bumbling along. So I would drive home via my patients of FHP and I'd pop in and do their feet on their way home. So like it just carried on. And then when I finished, I was like, I need a space to do this from. I can't utilize all these new skills from going around people's houses.
Yeah.
I need somewhere where I can do it. And it was my husband actually who was like, it's for now or never. And there was a lady who was retiring who was in Ashford, and she, to be fair, it was probably one of the worst things I ever did. it gave me like a weird psychological security, even though it was a bad move.
Yeah.
And I
Why was it a
wish I
bad move?
hadn't, because I bought a list off of somebody and it was like rubbish. It was a rubbish idea. But
Yeah.
I felt like I needed that little, almost at the time, like a buffer to prove that I could do it. She was retiring, so therefore there's existing patients who come to a clinic. Because I think my biggest fear was like the people that I visit at home, they're not going to want to come to a clinic because they've got this nice thing where I just turn up at their house. And also, do they actually value my new skills, which is another thing which I can tell you that they probably don't, but that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to set my stall up as a podiatrist doing podiatry proper, if you like. And so I bought this list, and then COVID was here, and the lady, very pleasant, did it in good faith, but she didn't really tell her patients that she was selling this list. So when I did this massive thing and I built a clinic in this place, I'd say maybe 3% of the list came, and I think they probably would have
Right.
come
Okay.
anyway.
That's what you mean by bad
But
list. So because when you said bad list, I wasn't sure. Did you mean bad list as then you had thousands of terrible patients, but it
no,
wasn't the
just
bad list that you had no
the
patients?
handover was not, the handover didn't really happen. It wasn't really a handover. And my mum, bless her, she was ringing up people saying, oh, the clinic's open. They were like, oh, no thanks. So I had this reams of names and numbers that apparently had consented for me to contact them, and only a very slim, very small amount thought it came.
Did you pay
But
much
then,
for the list?
yeah, way too much. Way too much. Yes. But again, in
Ah,
my naivety, you live and learn, don't you? So
yeah.
it was a really poor idea, but trying to find some positive from it, it made me feel like I can do this because there are people. And rather than me going, okay, new clinic, what happens now? Which kind
Well,
of what
it's a
happened
good
anyway.
lesson though to other people listening to this
Sure,
that if somebody is
for
selling a
sure.
list,
You
don't
can't buy good faith. You can't,
no.
it's not a thing. And the thing is this lady who did this, again, I think she was as naive as I was. She was just like wanting to retire, and like I don't have any beef or blame or anything like at all. It was just my naivety and probably hers, but she was in a space where that room in that place wasn't available. Perhaps if I'd have gone into that space, it might have transpired as a better thing. But ultimately, I had to set up a whole new space, build a clinic out of an empty office room, and try and attract people in there, which actually is tricky.
Like you said about like goodwill is you can't always measure goodwill. And if the clinic or the patients are so linked to the owner and that owner just leaves, especially if the owner leaves and doesn't tell them that they're leaving,
Yeah,
then
or that I recommend you head this way.
yeah, goodwill can turn into badwill pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was unfortunate, but I suppose my sometimes is to my detriment, but mostly is that I went to a grammar school where we would be told pretty much every day that you're in the top 10% girls, blah, 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 blah. And I was
Yeah,
kind of C grade, B grade. I was all right. I'd got in, but I was always at that 9.9 recurring part of that 10%.
yeah.
So I was always made to feel that, in fact, one of my biology A-level teacher said to me, you will never make anything of yourself. You will end up in a supermarket. And I think in a weird way, even now, and this old guy, he was old then, maybe he was only 30, I don't know, but
Yeah.
he was old then. I don't reckon he's still alive now. But I feel like I'm still trying to show them I can do this. And it's given me drive, and there's something I feel like I'm always trying to prove something, but I don't know who I'm trying to prove it to, because I never get to enjoy what's happening right now, because I'm always 5 steps ahead of what's going to happen next and what problems are going to come my way. So maybe
Mm.
one day when I stop, I will go, do you know what? I did all right, you know.
Can I share something with you that
Yeah.
I think you're going to really appreciate? And this is something I've been talking to a lot of my coaching clients about lately. And I did mention it as a little snippet at the end of a podcast a few weeks back. Every now and then I put a little secret message at the end of a podcast. So people end just when it ends. every now and then there's a secret message 10 or 15 seconds later.
Okay.
And what it was about was big mistake people make is they think happiness and achievement are actually related to each other, but they're actually independent variables. So, and that's why we sometimes keep pushing ourselves that I have to do this and I have to do that. And you never seem happy because you're addicted to the achievement instead of just thinking, no, I can be happy without the achievement. The happiness and achievements are two different things. So when you're saying you don't know if you're trying to prove something to somebody or not, you don't even know when you have proved it. I think
Yeah.
I did that for decades.
Well, I think this year I've had a bit of a leveler year this year. Like both of my boys have been really poorly, and it's kind of go, do you know what? Enough now.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm inundated with people that want to come see me. I win awards. Like there's a lot of stuff going on with work, but actually enough. So I'm happy just as I am right now. I mean, ask me in 3 months when I've got over it all, and I'll be like,
Yeah.
right, next job. But I've told everyone who I work with, I was like, we are just being chill till Christmas because I don't
Yeah.
know. But I just need a bit of okay and breathe and just take stock and kind of chill.
Yeah, but if you also reflect back that you're thinking, oh, you don't know when you've achieved certain things or when you've done enough. But if you think back to Natalie, who, if it wasn't for you, wouldn't probably be doing podiatry now and having a lifestyle that she will end up having from it, and it's all related to you. So if that doesn't put a smile on your face
That's
and make
too
you feel
big a thing
happy,
to think about. I can't take that on because that's
yeah, so your inspiration, but she may not have. Your inspiration, like I know even on the podcast here, there's been times when I've gone, do I still want to keep doing this podcast or not? Yeah, because sometimes you just got other things on, but I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy the interview process. But what I enjoy more is when I get an email from a podiatry student or someone who's only been out for a couple of years and they've gone, I was going to leave podiatry, but I heard this guest on the podcast. And when you asked them this question, how they answered it made me realize I'm doing the right thing. And all of a sudden you go, oh, how can I quit? How can I stop the podcast? I have to keep it going. And even you told me that when I did some of the videos recently about
yeah,
the builders and destroyers, when you said, "Oh, that message, it needed to be said."
for sure.
So I think you just got to.
You've also been my friend on the treadmill for a few years as well.
But I think you've just got to. I don't know. I think if you know you're having a positive impact, that should put a smile on your face, and
Yeah,
just keep
yeah,
doing
and
it.
I want people to be awesome. I think it is a very apparent, even in like local circles where I operate. People, it's weird because people want to drag each other down rather than build each other up. And I've recently been doing the first contact practitioner PG cert, and I'm working with paramedics and physios, dietitians in this kind of group course. And what becomes really apparent is actually they're all building each other. They're all supporting each other.
Yeah,
And I feel like sometimes that doesn't happen for our job. And that makes me a bit sad.
I think it's improving. I
It's better.
actually, I think I think there is a shift with a lot of the younger podiatrists coming through there. I think they're realizing they've got to, if they really want to see podiatry grow, they've got to support each other. And I
Yeah.
think they're
And I
actually
hope
starting
that
to
is
do
how
that.
it, I hope so. Because we are quite niche and the public don't really get it sometimes what we actually do until they've got a problem. And they're like, oh, just cut toenails. You know, like that's not what we do. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we do. It's so varied.
I do think I think it's definitely improving. But you obviously have a link to the university. You're in there doing lecturing or tutoring.
Yeah, now and again, just as a guest, I go in and just have a nice time
So
and
that would have
just
been,
chat.
that's where Natalie would have bumped into you then,
Yeah,
when
so
you were
I
guest
go and
speaking.
I do. So they do like this. I think it's called professional opportunities. Is how I first started. So the reason why I could think I used to go is that I used to go and listen. They'd get these old dinosaurs in, and I'd be like, "That's a load of old rubbish. That's not how you start a business. Yellow Pages doesn't exist.
Yeah,
I don't buy into any of this." Because at the time I was building my FHP business, so I was doing the business thing just with a lesser skill set. So I fill in my little feedback form at the end. I was like, I could do it better than that. And then I think they thought, go on then, Joe, put your money where your mouth is. So I did. So they called my bluff, and actually I really liked it.
I think there's nothing better than I've never done any talks for any podiatry students in Australia, but I have for podiatry students in California. I
Okay.
I have for dietitian students at some of the
Oh wow,
universities,
okay.
and I have to a couple of the high schools in America where they've got me come in and been spoke to them. It was all done online at different times. So I find it funny. I've never spoken to any podiatry students in Australia, but I have spoken to these other ones around the world, which I think is funny. Lets you know how small
Yeah.
the world is too.
Yeah, right. Although I really enjoy it and I really like it because they'll come up to me like at the conference and be like, "Oh, you're Joe Shapter." And my mates who I'm with are like, "Oh, here she goes. Oh, Joe Shapter. Someone knows who she is." And then they'll come and say, like, "I really enjoyed what you said. Can I ask you a question?" And I say to them, when all of them, I give them all my details. I'm like, if you want to reach out, you can message me anytime and I'll try and help you. I might not know the answer, but I'll have a go.
But that's what people want to hear. They want to hear real stories. Even when I spoke at the Foot and Ankle Show in 2019, and when I was there, just before going up and talking on stage, this young podiatrist came up to me and she said, "Oh, you're not going to remember me, but I was a patient of yours when I lived in Cairns in Australia. My parents
Oh,
brought me in
wow.
to see you, and it was because of that visit and what I saw about podiatry, which is why I became a podiatrist." And I'm thinking,
Wow. That's
and all of a
really
sudden I'm
cool.
talking to her on the other side of the world. That was amazing.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Oh, do
Haven't
you?
got that exciting stuff to tell you yet.
Yeah,
I'm
but
still working on that one.
yeah, but see, I'm much older than you, so I have more stories. So when I was saying before about the happiness and achievement, so there's a question you should ask yourself every day, and you
Okay.
score yourself from 1 to 10. If you do this every day, it'll keep getting better. And the question is, what did I do today to be happy?
Okay.
So if every
We
day
do
ask yourself
in
that
my
question.
house, we do
Mm.
a thing in my house at dinner time. The kids do it too. And we have three things. You have to tell three things. What was a good thing, a thing you might do better next time, and what was your greatest thing of the day? So it's like that, isn't it?
Yeah, but and it's just score yourself every day. What did I do today to be happy? Because a lot
Yeah.
of times we just don't think about being happy. We,
I'm definitely happy. I'm
you sound
definitely a
happy.
positive. Yeah, I'm always like, what's the good thing I can take out of this? Even if it's a shit thing, I will still try and find something. A bit like that rubbish list. Like it was naff. There was still some good in it because it made me take a leap of faith and open a clinic. And then within 18 months, I'd had to leave that clinic to get another clinic that was twice the size. So, like, it all links in. It's all part of your story, isn't it? Like, even the rubbish stuff, you can still take good stuff out of it once you've got over the rubbish.
I think if life just ran smooth, just perfect all the way,
Be
I
boring.
reckon it'd be boring.
Be rubbish.
Oh, it'd be
Really
awful, wouldn't it?
rubbish.
Just, yeah, when you
Yeah.
go to your bank account, there's more money in there you can spend, and
Oh,
everything
you've got
is
to have a
just
bit of hoo-ha
fantastic.
going on.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
Otherwise, what would you talk about? Nothing. Just talk apart from the weather, and that is boring.
No, but it is. I think you need some adversity. It toughens you up a little bit.
Yeah,
And I think you appreciate the good things in life and the beauty in life when you've seen some of the ugliness or had some things go wrong.
bit
Yeah,
tricky.
whether it's a death in a family. If you've never experienced death in a family before and it happens to somebody else, you can only feel a certain amount. When you go through it
Yeah.
yourself, then all of a sudden you're like, oh. Now, you also mentioned in your bio, when you just said, things you're working on, you said something about the podiatry apprenticeship scheme.
Oh yeah. Okay. So that's why I've got to be chill till Christmas because from January that's part of the plan that
Okay,
we are going to grow our own podiatrists.
I like
So
that
we've got
idea, grow your own.
somebody, yeah. So we've got somebody who works with us as an FHP, and she's going to hopefully jump into the podiatry apprenticeship scheme, and then we'll be able to see what that's like because it's hard to recruit people.
Mm.
It's hard to recruit the right people that fit in with how you do things and how you want to do things and all of that stuff. And I'm really fortunate in that the people that I work with were a really solid bunch. I mean, we've had a few major humps again during this last year, and it's made me reevaluate, do I really need the aggravation? Because actually what I have found is that I did a degree in sport, did a degree in podiatry. I had to learn how to do business stuff. And like we said earlier, I've made some right old cock-ups. But also, it's actually really hard to do people, really hard. So I felt that if I grew somebody from within what we do, they already are part of our ethos and what we do and how we do it. And at the end of the day, they gain from it regardless, because they get a degree and they're not in heaps and heaps of debt. And even if they don't decide to stay with us, I feel like I've given them part of what we do. So I know that they'll go forward and do it really well. So that's why I want to get involved in it.
So are they actually asking for podiatry clinics around the UK to say, hey, put your hand up if you want to take somebody on, or is it?
To be honest, I'm not entirely sure. It was just that we went through a whole big recruitment thing in the summer, and it made me feel really fed up, because you're like, it's like flogging dead dogs, whatever I don't know what the phrase is, but you're almost pimping
flogging
yourself
a dead
out.
horse.
Oh, look at me, and I'm like super stuff. And I'm like, no, I shouldn't be saying look at all my super stuff, because actually you should want to come to do your super stuff at our place. And it just became hard work, and I thought, how can I make this
Was that you trying to
nice?
promote yourself as a podiatry clinic then?
Did you see that?
I did. I saw you.
That's probably why it failed.
Oh, people listening to the audio just missed out on the video of you being super cool. People watching the video.
I don't even have to cry.
But it's because I talk to so many podiatrists all around the world, and it seems to be the same problem where keeping podiatrists in the profession has been difficult, and there just seems to be a shortage across the board. I don't know. I personally don't believe it's true, and I'll explain why before you go, you're full of shit, Tyson. Why I don't think it's true is I don't believe there's a shortage of podiatrists. I just think there's an abundance of really crappy jobs. And because there's so many crappy jobs out there, the people that have got the really good jobs are hidden in all the noise. So all the graduates come out, they go, there's all these jobs. They just take a job. They need to spend more time digging down to find out what is really the best job for me and trying to align themselves with the right person.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that we were quite fortunate, I guess, in a way, that quite a few people came and spoke to us. And then maybe I was just a bit rubbish and I made a bit of a bad shout. And then I was like, what the hell have I done? So that's why I think I'm engaging with this whole process, because it's quite exciting to take someone who has no idea, they just think this is something they want to do, and watch the progress and watch them fly and watch them shine. And I think that's really important.
I think if you haven't employed podiatry before, and even when you're developing your team, is sometimes you got your training wheels on, you're going to make mistakes. And I think sometimes when an employee joins with an employer, if the employer says, hey, you're the first person I've ever employed, they've got to give them a bit of leeway that they're going to make mistakes. They're going to maybe do the wrong thing, say the wrong thing.
And I think as well, like for us this year, we changed the whole model of how we do stuff. So because of this first contact role that we're taking on board and doing, so we're now working some work in primary care.
Yeah.
As a company within primary care, which is really exciting, because I'm getting to mould the service, because it's a brand new service to our area. So that's exciting. I like to be involved in how I want things done, not how we should bumble along and it all should go to shit, because that's how we've always done it, which seems to happen quite a lot. So there's lots of opportunities for other people coming in that we can facilitate, which I like. People coming in to do it the way that we do it, not go, I want all the monies, give me all the monies. I'm like, but you can have all the monies, but you need to do it my way.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think if it's your business, whoever comes to join your team, they've got to do it your way. It's your business. So
And I'm very patient driven. I'm all about preventative care and I'm all about my patients. So I know you need money to pay your mortgage and your bills and whatever, but I
the
would
money will
much
come.
rather have a full caseload where I felt like I go home at the end of the day and I've achieved something by I've helped people in that way. Sometimes perhaps I'm maybe too much of a people pleaser and it plays on my mind a lot, but then that also, I think you have to be a bit like that in healthcare anyway, don't you?
I think most people in healthcare, even somebody said it to me once, oh, you must have a caring nature. And I'm like, I probably don't. But I think to be in healthcare and to be in it for year after year, decade after decade, if you didn't like helping people, cared about people, you probably wouldn't keep doing it because
No.
there's a lot of ways to make money in the world. But if you've ever read the world's greatest podiatry book, it's no secret there's money in podiatry. Back when I had hair, what's funny about that book? At no stage do I really talk about making money in that book. It's really about developing a good business and looking after your patients, just like what you're doing. If you look after your patients, the money just turns up. It's just
People
there.
find us, which I think is what I guess ultimately wanted to achieve. Like people find us. Like I don't need to be in a high street. I don't need to be like where I'm sitting right now. There's no bus service here. There's no train station nearby. You can't walk here. We're in this business park in like the countryside, but yet we're full, and
Yeah.
people come and find us. And I think that's a massive achievement.
So
Actually, now
with
I'm going
your,
to chat that.
you're like, give yourself a
Everyone,
pat,
I'm having that one.
give yourself a
Yeah,
pat
go
on the
me.
back.
Get
Yeah.
me out.
Yeah. Look, watch me go. Well, I got a coaching client, and he's in a very small country town in Victoria. Yeah, it's less than 4,000 people, and he's going gangbusters, doing great. Yeah, and I think if you look after your patients, the work will flow, your reputation will flow, and yeah, you'll basically do fine from it. So, with your background, that sports and exercise science,
Yeah.
has your clinic taken on more of a biomechanical approach
We're
back
a
in
bit of
the
everything, really. I kind of been doing quite a lot of everything. I get my fingers in all the pies, but
yeah,
there's a diabetes charity that's in Kent called the Paula Carr Trust. And in COVID, all the kind of foot screening things stopped because everyone was staying at home. And we were obviously allowed to be open because it's a clinical thing. And people would come with like loads of surprise wounds. Now, if I had to pick wounds and MSK, all day long MSK.
yeah,
However, when wound comes, you deal with it. And I felt that I was getting loads of surprises that I didn't really like. So I reached out to the Paula Carr Trust, and now I work with them 2 days a week, providing foot screening done by podiatrists rather than healthcare assistants. So that was a massive springboard, and it opened up loads of doors to like primary care. So I don't really know what my trajectory is as such. I mean, I love MSK and I don't love injuries because I don't
yeah.
love them. I like helping people with injuries and problems and stuff like that and all that rehabilitation. But equally, I'm passionate about it all. I like all of it. I think my probably favouriteest thing ever is surgery. But my husband's told me I'm not allowed to be a surgeon, so I just have to stick with nail surgery and be happy.
I thought he said you can do whatever you want.
Well, now the kids are big, I have to do a bit of like parenting and let
Oh,
them
right.
find
Okay.
a way. So
Some grown
now
up
I have to
stuff.
like wind my neck in a little bit.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
it. You don't cause the injuries. You don't mind treating them. I remember when I first graduated, had my own clinic for about 2 years, and I was doing 10-pin bowling at the time. And I don't think I've told anyone this story on the podcast. Anyway, I'm walking through with my bowling ball, and I dropped it, fell out of my hand accidentally, and landed on this guy's foot. And he's complaining, as you probably would when a 16-pound bowling ball lands on your foot. So, so I'm having a look at his foot, and I'm checking all that. He goes, "Oh, what do you do anyway?" I said, "Oh, I'm a podiatrist." And he said, "So is it?" Everyone kept thinking, "Is this how you get business? You just walk around dropping bowling balls on people's feet?" I said, "No, but it
Could be
could
a start.
work. Yeah, it could work. Just got to be careful on where you actually." Lucky he had a shoe on, just a little bit of bruising. He was fine.
And did he
Bowling.
become your patient?
I
Just
think
out
he
of
did.
interest.
Yeah, I think he may have. Yeah.
Okay, that's a whole new avenue there, right there.
Well, I remember my brother used to play cricket. He was a fast bowler, and he came in one day, did this, bowled the ball, did a bouncer, hit the guy right in the mouth, knocked his front tooth out, And my brother reached in his back pocket and just handed him his business card because he's a dentist.
Oh my gosh.
And the guy just went, "You're kidding me, aren't you?" He says, "Oh, you got to drum up business somehow." So, yeah, only happened once. He thought it was funny. So, have you got any word, before we wrap up, have you got
Yeah.
any words of wisdom that you would like to share with the people that are listening to this now? I always like something
God.
something that will inspire or motivate.
Oh God. I'm probably the most unwise person I know.
You're doing
I
fine
don't
so
know.
far.
Just do it. Just do it. If you think you can, you probably can. So you might as well try. And what's the worst that's going to happen? Really? You've got to jump in the pool. There's no point just dipping your little toe and going, oh, it's a bit chilly. If you've got something you want to do and you think you're passionate enough to do it, there you go.
There we go.
Drop the mic.
That's the mic drop. Just boom. Do the. There we go. That's
That's
like
it.
the mic drop
Go on,
moment.
Fred.
But I remember Zig Ziglar, who was my favorite motivational speaker. He used to always go on about, was it paralysis by analysis? Some people they stop and they think too much about doing something instead of just taking some action. Because it's not until you take some action that you get some feedback that you can then modify it, pivot, tweak it a little bit, and learn from it. If you never take the
Oh,
action, then you'll never
just
know.
got
Yes.
something wise.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Something wise. Here we go.
Yes.
Ready?
Here we go. Yeah.
Don't look for the barriers. Look for the things that you can do, not for the things that you can't.
I like that. So that was a good way to finish.
There you go. Boof. That's the real mic drop. Yeah.
Okay, Jay, I want to thank you for coming on the Podiatry Legends podcast,
Thanks for having me.
sharing part of your story. I tell you right now, there will be people who listen to this and they'll just go, now I understand why Natalie Kitchener got excited about meeting you. So,
No.
thank you very much.
But if there is, that's great. If not, just turn me off. It's fine.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed yourself.
I did. Yes. Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed listening to Joe today. And what am I saying? Of course, if you've got this far in the recording, you have enjoyed this particular episode. And I think it's really important just to point out again that everything we do, what we say, our actions, the people we talk to, how we actually present ourselves in the profession, unknowingly does inspire other people. Or it could have the negative effect if you're not careful with what you say. So just be really aware of that there's people that look up to you and there's people that you're inspiring unknowingly. And I think that's the biggest point that I take away from this particular episode. And and Joe definitely even inspired me when I was interviewing her. So I hope you get something from that. Now, before I wrap up, just to remind people, if you're enjoying this podcast, please tell your podiatry friends it exists. And if you haven't checked out my YouTube channel, just go to Tyson E. Franklin. And over there, I have a pile of videos that I usually release at least one a week. And also the recording, or the video recording of this particular episode. And for those of you who are going to the Foot and Ankle Show in February, I look forward to catching up with you there. My marketing workshop is officially sold out, which is absolutely fantastic. But I will be doing one in Australia in June. I will have more information about that later on. Okay, that's it for me this week. I want you to look after yourself, look after your family, and I will talk to you next week. Bye for now. Okay, as I mentioned to Joe when we were doing the interview, I said every now and then I leave a message at the end of each podcast episode, and people listen to it all the way to the end, they will get the message. Now, I don't do it all the time, which is why you've got to listen right to the end. So I thought this would be a perfect time to do it. And I just want to read something to you. And it said, every year you should pretend you're a competitor and you're planning to put yourself out of business. How would you do it? This is a question that I heard someone ask at an event that I attended. And I think it's a really, really good question. Think about, if you were a competitor, how would you put you out of business? And really sit there and give that some thought. And if you can come up with ways that you can put you out of business or affect your business, then you need to take measures to make sure that doesn't happen. And if you've got a team, sit down with your team as well and ask them the same question. If you were a competitor, what would you do to try and put us out of business? And I think you'll be surprised some of the ideas that you could come up with to put yourself out of business. And then make sure you put things in place to mitigate that, to make sure that does not happen. Okay, I hope you get something from that, and I look forward to talking to you next week on next week's episode. Bye.